The AI economy isn't built on thin air or glowing blue pixels. The AI economy isn't built on thin air, on infrastructure, or glowing blue pixels. Reliable data. It runs on power, and most importantly, on infrastructure, on people, on reliable data. A culture where research collides with risk-taking and relentless innovation. A culture where research collides with risk-taking and relentless innovation. And in Pittsburgh, that full stack is in our DNA. From the first we carry a legacy where grit meets energy. From the first sparks of steel to the steady pulse of nuclear. Why here? To the all-time high demand of natural gas. Offers what others can't. Why here? Direct access. Because Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania offers what others can't. Direct access to the toughest real-world problems in energy, healthcare, manufacturing, and defense. Problems worth solving. And the next generation of industry problems that forge billion-dollar companies. And the next generation of industry titans. Just as Andrew Carnegie once did. Where top researchers this is the summit where vision meets muscle. Where top researchers collide with top makers, doers, and deployers.
Collides with the intelligence
Welcome
of AI.
to Pittsburgh, where championship grit collides with the intelligence of AI. The new AI economy starts here.
AI Horizons guests, please welcome to the stage AI Strike Team Executive Director and Producer of AI Horizons, an initiative of the AI Strike Team, Joanna Dovin.
Thank you. That was a very fun introduction. Good morning. I think last night a lot of people went out. I've heard some stories. So the room is pretty full, but I know there's a ton of you watching on our live stream. We have over 17 states represented here today, but on our live stream, there's people from 10 different countries watching. So hello and welcome. I'm extremely excited about today. We are kicking off with where I see and where the world sees the future of this thing called AI that many of us here are intellectually curious about. A lot of folks here do not work in AI. You are CEOs of companies, you are even CTOs, and you're trying to figure out what the world looks like in the next month, in the next 12 months, in the next 3 years. I met the person I'm going to introduce in a minute at NVIDIA's GTC Summit. And I have to admit, I didn't really know who this person was because I'm trying to translate this world for people in real time, and I'm learning so much every day. But I came to find out that I was hanging out with the godfather of computer vision, which is the foundation for physical AI. Many of you have interacted with robots if you have a Roomba, okay? And I think 5 years ago, I got a Roomba and I thought, oh, this is the coolest thing in the world. But what I saw at the NVIDIA GTC Summit was just completely, the pace of innovation is something that we can't understand. And we're here today to explain how this innovation is going to propel human innovations and change our physical world. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Marcel Hebert. He is the Dean of Computer Science at Carnegie Mellon University, and I also learned that the founders we're going to hear from shortly, Deepak and Abhinav with Skilled AI, he is their mentor. He is the mentor of so many of the unicorn companies that have spawned from Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. So without him, it's arguably real that we would not be here today. Marcel, thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. First of all, I've never been called the godfather of anything, so that's a step up. So what we're going to do this morning is we're going to hear from our distinguished speakers from Skilled AI, and then I'll have a conversation with them about physical AI and autonomy. But before we do this, I'm going to give what is possibly the longest speaker introduction on record, okay? So should we have something projected here? Do you have the slide? There it is. Okay, so I'm a big fan of history, and I'm particularly a big fan of history in this context. We tend to lose track of the fact that the advances that we see and the unicorns are the result of very long-term research and very long-term progress. So what I'm going to do in that, don't worry, it's not going to be that long, but that somewhat longish introduction is to put what they're going to talk about a little bit in a historical context. Okay, so this was 40 years ago. By the way, it's hard to tell, but it's actually moving, okay? This was the first attempt at AI on autonomy. This is in Shenley Park behind CMU. This is a thing called the Terragator that was part of the very first federal attempt at self-driving program, DARPA program called Autonomous Land Vehicle. This is another view of that. This is an attempt at doing road following, which of course we have now every day out there in from various companies, but those were the first attempts about 40 years ago. The one thing that is important to note here, and is going to be important in our discussion, is that this was a very, very specialized system. You can see that it's trying to find the edges of the road very explicitly, and it's basically specialized to a particular task, and it's not particularly data-driven. This is going a little bit further. This is about 35 years ago or so. This is something called the NavLab. And again, those are what you're seeing here are the first attempts at autonomous driving. Some success, of course, with great limitations. Why do I show you that? Well, I show you that because this gives a glimpse as to the evolution of AI on autonomy. Starting at the bottom, this is another historical piece at the bottom, by the way. This is from a historical paper by Ota and Kennedy. This was one of the first attempts at doing scene understanding, something that now you have on every autonomous car everywhere in operation. But of course, at the time was new. What was done there, as you can kind of hint at from this display, is something very specialized for very specific tasks, and certainly something that is not based on data. Then we moved about 10 years ago to things like we saw at the top, convolutional neural network, things that are much more data-driven, still somewhat specialized to particular tasks. So moving forward now, what we I've seen this evolution going, and this was a quick illustration of that history and the direction of that history. And again, the reason why I show you this is what you're going to see in a few minutes is the extreme case of that, of what's going on today here in Pittsburgh at Skilled AI. We're going to more general model, as general as possible, as opposed to the specialized models that you saw earlier. We're going to models that can be constructed with as little supervision as possible. When I show you that video at the very beginning of that robot following roads, people had to go in and label thousands of images and videos for this to be possible. Of course, we don't want to do this, and it's critical. And of course, the net result of that is the ability to use more data. And by that, I mean an unprecedented amount of data that will lead us to an unprecedented level of generality in the models. So that's what we're trying to do. That's where the field is going. And specifically in the case of physical AI and robotics, what we really want are completely general purpose robots. By the way, the few slides that I have now, I shamelessly stole from our speaker just to give proper attribution. Now, this was done before, by the way. We're all familiar with Gen AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, et cetera, et cetera. Those are models that are totally general. They're not tuned to a particular task, but they are general model of vision and text and things like this. What we want to do is the same thing for robotics, the same thing for physical AI. The problem, of course, is that we don't have the ready availability of data that we have for the other modality. Other consideration, there are many examples of robots that are very specialized, that are very program model. This issue of brittleness, how can we make those systems robust? And then there's an issue that maybe is a little bit overlooked sometimes unless you're really deep in the weeds of the robotics business. Those robots are extremely expensive. Why are they expensive? It's because of the AI, it's because of the software that is not able to adapt to the imperfections of the robot, and therefore requires extremely expensive hardware. So there's been a lot of progress. Those are a couple of examples. On the right, yeah, you're right, is some work that was done at CMU by the folks that you're going to hear from in a minute. First attempt of having robots learning by themselves how to manipulate, and that led to much larger effort, for example, at Google. Work here at CMU with Berkeley on doing the equivalent of large language model, but for robot planning, which again led to much larger effort. So there is a series of work that has evolved over the years, over the past 10 years or so, that goes from those specialized models, little data, lots of supervision, to very general model, enormous amount of data, very little or no supervision. Okay. So with that, I want to introduce our speakers. So Abhinav Gupta, in another life, is a professor of robotics at CMU. Deepak Pathak is Raj Reddy Assistant Professor of Robotics, soon to be associate, right? We need to fix that, right? Somebody needs to, okay. So that's their title at the university, but that's not why they're here. They're here because they created a company called Skilled AI, that is the shiny example of the history that I just presented, and basically the culmination of that history. So I'd like to now, before I'm going to invite them on stage, and while they're coming on stage, I want to play a short video that will show you the sequence of work that led to the creation of this company. And there is, by the way, a not so subliminal message in this, in case there are anybody from the government here. This is an illustration of the fundamental importance of long-term academic research in being able to create what you're going to hear from Deepak and Abhinav. Is it going to play? Yeah. Dramatic music.
All right. So hopefully through these videos, you saw a glimpse of Pittsburgh, because we shot these videos at almost every part of Pittsburgh City. So Shenley Park to Highland Park to CMU buildings, inside these buildings at night, breaching privacy and, and different offices. So now, so I'm Deepak. I'll talk about Skilled AI, what we do here. And Marshall has given a brief introduction of, or good introduction of what we are building. But to just highlight this problem, at Skilled, we are building a general brain for robots. If you think of robotics, the word robotics, what comes to mind? You picture a hardware. That's how robotics has been ingrained into your mind through movies and everything for the last 70 years. And there has been so many demonstrations, so many hardware in robotics, but still you don't see robots around us, apart from factories in confined settings. And the reason is because what has been missing for the last 70 years is the brain component, which cannot make these robots work in unstructured scenarios. This is where a skill comes in. So we are building a general purpose foundation model for robotics. And everybody around the world today, if you hear, you will hear them saying that robotics is the next frontier of AI. And we are seeing so much progress in Gen AI these days. LLMs, these generative models, these image models, video models. So it seems like robotics will be yet another frontier for AI. And what people forget is that the one and the main reason we are seeing all this success in AI is because of scale. As a community, we have figured out how to scale data and how to train on that large-scale data with large-scale compute. So data has been the main driver of success in AI for all these last 5 years or so, with exponential progress we are seeing. And the catch is, such data is completely unavailable for robotics, because there is no internet of robots like there is for language or vision. In fact, real robots are too slow to collect data. And here you might hear the argument that, okay, now that we know AI works with data, so I'll go ahead and collect data on robots. And at some point, I'll have big enough data set, I can train these systems. And it seems very plausible, right? But you have to go deeper in the numbers. These language models, like even not the latest one, just 2 years ago, they are trained on the order of 100 trillion examples. 100 trillion. It's a very big number. So I'll say again, 100 trillion examples, right? And just to put in context, if you go and collect that scale of data on robots, even if I hire billion people on Earth as my employees to collect data, it will take centuries to reach that level. So you cannot just go ahead and replicate the same recipe. So robotics is not another frontier for AI. AI was built for robotics from 1954, and that's what Marshall was saying earlier. So this is the hardest problem in all of AI. And this is where skill comes in. We are trying to create this general brain for robotics, using data from all possible sources to combine and train this general brain. This model works across scenarios, across tasks, across robot. In short, any robot, any task, one brain. Okay? Any robot, any task, one brain. Now this may sound, okay, this makes sense, AI is general. But if you think again, any robot, what does it even mean for a mod brain to work for a dog robot and a human robot? They are very different things. But we are building same model across systems. Any robot, any task, one brain. And our goal is to bring what we call the GPT moment of robotics. But the difference is this GPT moment for robotics will not be anyway like ChatGPT moment. It will not be overnight. It will not happen over a week and everyone knows about it. Robotics requires physical deployment. So it will be a slow movement where robust, low-cost robots are deployed around the world and in different form factors. There will not be any one form factor. It can't be just humanoid, because in factories you have tasks where you require superhuman performance. So human form factor is very limiting for that. So the idea is multiple robust, low-cost robots deployed in different varied form factors. So how do we do this? I'll not go to the detail, but I had this slide I forgot to do next. So low-cost robots, multiple form factor. But one of the key idea or the key notion behind GPT movement was not that you had a ChatGPT model. What GPT changed is people's perspective on AI. Like before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT, there is a different phase, and people treat intelligence very differently how we treated it 5 years ago. And that's what will be the same thing for robotics as well. With this GPT moment, we will start to think of physical economy in a very different way that we think today. At some point, long in the future, work will become optional, and we have to prepare for those kind of scenarios ahead of time. So how do we scale? Like I mentioned, there is no data set out there to scale robotics. Well, what we do is we leverage alternate sources of data. What do I mean by that? Is human videos and simulation. We actually learn from humans because in our opinion, humans are also robots, but we are just biological robot. So instead of motors, electricity, we have muscles and joints. But same principles drive a human body as a robot body. So we learn from these videos and we practice in simulation, etc. And One of the interesting differences from what we have seen before to today is a drastic change in how we approach physical AI. Like from the video that Marshall showed from 1980s, and even today, you look at any robotic system around the world, any, like no exception, you will find a pipelined approach even today. Like you have some input coming in, you build a map, you build a plan, you build controllers, you have an output. Even today, when companies say that we are doing end-to-end, like if I ask you, Waymo cars versus Tesla self-driving, the common notion is Tesla cars are end-to-end, while Waymo cars are more rule-based, right? But they're both AI-based. But the thing is, when people say they're, like Tesla, for instance, their cars are end-to-end, they're only end-to-end in this box at the center, the planning box over here. They still have to build map, they still have to build controllers. So the car's brain is only deciding where to go. It's not aware of the wheels, or it's not aware of the motors. If you bump over something, the software is not aware of it. It is only looking at the road and deciding. So it's a very stage-wise approach. Even in the most advanced system we have today, self-driving cars, the approach is very stage-wise. But humans don't work like that. If you're driving, if your car bumps over something, you will feel it in your hand. And you don't have to see it. Your hand can feel it, your body can perceive, because you have an end-to-end brain. You operate planning, thinking, muscle memory. Everything is all happening in a fully connected part of your, inside your skull. And that's kind of model that Skilled is building. It goes from input to output. No separation of body, vision, planning. Everything is together, so which means we can do very powerful things which were not possible before, and extreme generalization. And this is very data-driven. We add more data, we get more capabilities. So unlike 20 years ago, we don't have programmers programming each skill, and instead, what they're programming is more data into the system. And as data increases, we see more capabilities emerge in the model. So I'll skip this and show, again, Pittsburgh, and this is a classic shot that we start our videos with. And here, what we'll show is a quick demonstration of any robot, any task, one brain. It's a very dense video. You have to pay full attention. Every frame is unique. The model can work day and night on variety of disturbances, very general, across robot, different number of motors. If you can find that, you can do double flying kick on the robot. Like, these are superhuman in many aspects already. For various practical applications like packing, you can have different robots, an arm on a conveyor belt or a humanoid, doesn't really matter. This is Frick Park, and that's the trail of the background, and the robot is going off trail up the hill. If you have lost AirPods, you know how hard this task is. So what you saw was just a glimpse of what a general brain can do. And most of these things were shot in Pittsburgh. So what you saw is a couple of places. Frick Park, our favorite place to shoot because it has jungle, etc. LGRA building, they graciously gave us the 9th floor. So we really exploited it to get nice views in all the videos with all the robots running over there in the East Liberty area. And same brain, every multiple tasks. Now the idea is, this is not just for show. These robots have to make a useful case for themselves. They have to solve a variety of applications. So for years, we have tried to automate things in industry through specialized models. There will be companies around the world who are solving one problem only. Like somebody is solving packing, somebody is solving sorting, somebody is solving pickup. And then what ends up happening over the years is those solutions become more and more specialized. If you go to industries today, warehouses, you will see a lot of automation. But it's a kind of automation that exists without people, because it's usually in cages. These are big, giant metal robots in a big cage. And you are not allowed to be near them because these robots are not perceiving the world the way humans do. They are not reactive. They are fully moving in a predetermined fashion as a machine. So those robots, in a way, are more like microwave. When microwave is running, you cannot put your hand inside. It's a completely contained system in the same way these robots are. What we are building is by making this general brain first, we unlock the capability to adapt this for a variety of applications. Now, if you look at the analogy with language, what GPT changed for us was not one chatbot engine. What it unlocked is a good enough initialization that now there can be tens and hundreds to thousands of companies who can build on top of it and make specialized applications. Like there are many companies building specialized models for legal industry, for healthcare. We had probably have a bridge today later on. So many companies building specialized applications from these general models. And the same thing we'll see in robotics as well. So once we make this base model, you can quickly fine-tune it for a variety of tasks which otherwise would be very hard to do. This is one example of airports task. Now this is a real task because this is how they are manufactured in industry. You build these cases differently, you build the airports differently, and they are assembled by humans one after another. We are here showing just a quick example of how with only a week or two of data, the general brain can adapt to each of these complicated scenarios. Now, these are not real airports. These are fake ones from Temu, like $10. But they are much more difficult because they don't have magnet inside them. So you have to really insert them properly. So this makes tasks much harder than regular airports. So you can also do things like assembly of wires. There is huge demand and huge need as we construct data centers. The cable, that these tasks are in large numbers. And there is not enough labor to support the rate at which we are building these data centers today. And we can already automate a large variety of those tasks through our models. You can also, a bit deeper into the locomotion part. These robots are superhuman in many ways. Again, this is beautiful Pittsburgh in the background. We try to shoot them in the springtime so that we get greenery, so that others don't know that we have 4 or 5 months of misery. You can see here, extremely reactive, extremely robust. And it's seeing and reacting. So nothing is programmed here. Even if you miss something, the robot can go over this. And now, even just this kind of capability, there can be a variety of applications that you can unlock in delivery, transportation, inspection, and etc. Now, one thing you will notice is that you may have seen robot videos out there, and there is huge question about China, US, etc. I bet you cannot find a video of humanoid doing stairs properly. And that's what is the missing part. People show backflip, jumping, Olympics, but nobody shows proper long-term stairs. And that's because you have to watch to react. And here, So you will find examples of like these 5, 6 stairs robot doing, because you can shoot several times. But here then, we have to find an area where there are a lot of stairs. So again, Pittsburgh has everything. And you see, it will come in a bit. There's a park full of stairs. So it's extremely robust on this kind of scenarios as well. Yeah, this is somewhere in Highland Park. It would drive around for several hours. I don't know why it was designed, but it only has stairs. So you see this long set of stairs, a really good test bed for testing these robots. Because now, what is the argument here? You can do 2, 3 stairs, 5, 6 stairs, 7, 8 stairs, it's all fine. But to shoot a result like this, any single mistake and the humanoid tumbles down all the way. And so this is why this is kind of critical. And it's reactive from vision, so it's not programmed in, so it lifts its feet when something difficult. This is kind of superhuman, like if you're pulling the robot from neck, humans cannot balance like this, but this robot can for some reason. And it's a human size, 6 feet almost. Yeah, so you can also adapt for things like packing, etc. Like these are tasks which are done by people today. Like even though you have automation for moving packages in industry, but in the end they have to be packed by people because it requires separating items because items are not stored in a loose fashion in industries. But from Amazon, you order one item, then you want one DVD or one cup. It has to be separated, and that's the hard part in this again. And that's what we can do with robots in all these scenarios. You can also do now. That being said, moving, jumping is also fun. So we can also do fun stuff. Don't just do. I just played again. It's very fast, but kind of impressive how smooth the motion is.
Now you should.
So again, that's all. So this is scaled across multiple variety of tasks and robots. And our long-term dream is that we believe robots will be the smartphone of next generation. Like 10 years ago, you did not think, or 15 years ago here in India, 10 years ago, that your kids will have smartphones or everybody will have smartphone. This is how we see the future as well. Home robot, work robot, and we want to be the brain behind all those hardwares around the world. Yeah, with that, thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Very, very impressive work. I have a couple of questions, and maybe one first to maybe challenge you a little bit. An argument in favor of more classical, by lack of a better term, architecture is that they are more easily verifiable for trust. I notice you have people around the robots at various places working with the robots. So how do you think about that the trust and safety aspect of those kind of techniques?
Yeah. So is this mic or this mic?
Yeah,
this one?
This one works, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, I mean, you are right that these deep learning systems are sort of a black box, right? Mm-hmm. And we do not always have a good handle on the description of the performance, but we have to kind of, we have to be okay with the fact that this is how things are going to be. Mm-hmm. Like, even if humans say, if you ask humans, and why did they do something, they can give you a variety of BS reason why they did this, and you have to trust that. You cannot really see the real intention of why it happened. This is similar kind of scenario here as well. We cannot give exact guarantees, which means to get guarantees, you have to be empirical, right? Like for instance, there is this amazing company called Zipline. What they do is they transfer items through drones from one place to other, right? Now, how do they prove, if they're using machine learning, machine vision, how do they prove that their system is safe? Now, FAA which is one of the most conservative organization in giving permits, there is no way to provide guarantees strictly in this setting. So what they did, they reformed their testing scenario. They design a test phase that goes from point A to point B 1,000 times or several times and measure performance, and you get guarantees empirically.
Yeah.
And if it works in variety of corner cases, you build trust over time. And that's what we are doing with self-driving and other things as well, where you cannot always give safety guarantee to the nines.
I mean, to add to this, this is where research and 10 years of being 15 years of professor also helps, right? It's not just about the data, right? I mean, if you think in robotics, we are not just doing language, which is the problem in LLMs. That's why you see lots of hallucinations. In robotics, you have to take language, you have to do vision, you have to do action, and you have to do other things like touch and so on. Now you're talking about a data which is very, very rich data. And when you are in rich data, hallucination is almost impossible, right? Because now everything has to align. Hallucination is a reason where you only see positive examples, not negative examples. In robotics, you see a lot of negative examples. When you're training in simulation, we are seeing all these negative examples as well, not just positive. Like in language, you're only seeing the good sentences. What are the bad sentences? What are the other formations? Because you're doing it in simulations and language, you're not seeing these things. And so we are seeing from the research that you don't have this problem of hallucinations as much in robotics as you feel in language. And on top of that, of course, we are also we can put these guardrails, which can actually make sure that the robots do not go out of the guardrails and so on. So all these different things that we can do should bring in the trust and safety, and of course, there's a cultural thing as well. Like the robots don't exist around us, and that's why Deepak said it's not going to be an overnight movement. It's going to be a slow penetration of robots into society, and as robots come more and more, the trust automatically gains. The people gain that trust with them also.
Yeah, and by the way, this idea of the fewer or the concept of hallucination disappearing or being completely different is something that I think we don't pay enough attention to. I have a second tough question. Don't worry, the other ones are easy. But the second tough one is this: you really emphasize the fact that you're interested in the brain, and pretty much only in the brain, right? However, for those things to be deployed, there has to be platforms. There has to be hardware, preferably that we can choose where it's manufactured, etc. Now, that's a big limitation right now. How do you think about that? How do you think about the availability of hardware in support of what you're doing with the brain?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardware has been challenging because of the absence of brain. If you think of look at chips, their hardware. Look at planes, their hardware. Anywhere you solve the software part, hardware catches up and develops very quickly. So what we are seeing in robotics for the last 10 to 15 years is motors getting cheaper and cheaper and more powerful, because we have figured out how to do better actuators, better wiring, better magnets. So things are rapidly changing. Now, it has not been at a scale of mass production yet because of the lack of brain. And you can see this kind of a revolution going on around the world today in hardware. Every week, you will find a new robotics hardware company pop up somewhere around the world. Many companies in China, of course, because China is really, really good at hardware and they have a lot of infrastructure. But even in US as well, there are several companies who have been building hardware. They have the expertise. So as and when needed, they can really scale their hardware effort. There are many companies like Agility, Tesla is building one. Although theirs is very private, so they don't actually show to others. So companies around the world are coming up at a rapid pace. Like 10 years ago, you would have a hard time getting a hardware for lab at CMU. I know Abhinav got all the earliest ones, but you have to really put source, pay a lot of money. But today, every lab can just buy good enough hardware for a few thousand bucks.
That's interesting. That kind of flips the narrative, right? The thinking of, machine and hardware motivating the development of new AI or software, but it's actually the other way.
Other way around, yeah. Like
interesting.
NVIDIA being big is because AI is being big. It's not NVIDIA became big, hence AI became big. kind of argument.
Interesting. You spoke and you showed some footage of various applications. I was wondering if you guys can say a little bit more. I know there are some things you cannot say. You're a business after all. But from what you can say, what are the promising applications? You showed a lot of things in the electronics area, assembly area. Are there other applications?
Yeah, so I think let's take a step back in applications, right? I mean, what you are seeing is a revolution in AI, but in the digital world right now. LLM is like digital world. Think of the physical world. The physical GDP of the world is much, much bigger than GDP. Now think of the scale, the revolution you're seeing now. If you multiply that with the physical world, if actually we are able to bring physical AI to fruition like the way we are talking about, it's going to be revolutionary. It's not only revolutionary from the point of view of applications, but also the investment it requires. I just want to be clear here, right? I mean, we are talking of completely different level of investment. Till now, you're only talking about language and vision data. Now you're adding language, vision, in time, and action data. You're talking about 10x more investment, probably in terms of the GPUs and the data centers that we have to build to learn these systems and so on. Now, keeping that in context, that we are talking about something so big. Today, at Scaled AI, we are looking at something that we can deploy very, very fast. Because unlike LLMs, where data was already there, we don't have the data. Our data will come from real-world deployment. So we have to deploy today and tomorrow, right? I mean, we cannot wait to solve the problem and then deploy, essentially. And so what we are looking at is places where there are huge labor shortages, or where there is humans find it very, very hard to concentrate. Like, for example, simple scenarios like security and surveillance, inspection, asset inspections, and so on. That's where we initially start small as well. But then we are also seeing huge labor shortages. For example, Deepak was talking about in building data centers. So that is like one of the areas we are super excited about to bring automation into the building of data centers themselves. Because in some way we have to do, as I said, we have to do 10x of these. If you're thinking of big now, it will be much, much bigger in the future. It's just the starting point, essentially. Apart from that, also places where it's dangerous for humans to be around, right? Like places like machine rooms, places like where there's high humidity. That's the whole. So in essence, what we are trying to do is we are trying to bring these robots into factories where there's long work hours, it's very hard, and make humans much more efficient. By doing these applications.
Yeah, that's what we call the 3Ds, the dull, dirty, and dangerous. Last questions, but perhaps most important for this particular venue. You in Pittsburgh, you showed gorgeous shots of Pittsburgh. By the way, you worked really hard on those settings, you know. So first of all, what does it mean to be in Pittsburgh for this kind of research, both in terms of the benefits, but also in terms of things that you would like to see maybe changed or improved to support you better in what you're trying to do?
Okay. So I'll take the first part, the why Pittsburgh, right? Because I came to Pittsburgh in 2009. 16 years, right? 16
I
years
remember.
Ago. Yeah, you hired me, so that's why I came to Pittsburgh. So it has been a journey, right? I mean, I feel Pittsburgh brings the huge amount of dense talent, especially CMU, into one place. We have people doing robotics, we have people doing machine learning, we have people doing electrical, like building hardware and so on. It's like this kind of dense talent is huge, and it makes you think much bigger. But this is tangible, right? The talent that we have, the resources we get from university, and so that's something which I also want to highlight here. CMU as a university is not only trying to do research, but also support young faculty when they are coming in, like giving resources and so on. But then there are intangibles, which I think are not highlighted enough about Pittsburgh, which I felt in the last 16 years have been a great player for me. So for example, Pittsburgh and like people like you have bet on people, like new people is what I'm saying. It's not about betting on existing people who have already done one startup, now betting on them. That's very common in, but here in Pittsburgh, I found people bet on new people, and when they bet, they go all the way, right? And so that's what I so for example, Marshall was saying, right, I mean, I come from computer vision background, nothing to do with robotics. Until 2015, I did not touch a robot. And that's a surprising part, right? In 2016, I first thought I'll touch a robot. And who supported me? Marshall, the first robot that I bought, it was paid by Marshall. I mean, he said, I believe in you. So I was telling that I want to do robotics. I think the whole idea of big data, can actually come to robotics as well. And because I had never done robotics, I did not have any funding to start this robotics work and so on. So from his own discretionary, Marshall gave me the first robot. He said, here's a robot, go and do it. And I think that's kind of the kind of big bets that people here take on young, and I think that's a big. And the second cultural thing which I think really differentiate Pittsburgh is we do not believe in just fancy stuff. We want to make things work. That's what the first thing I was told when I came to Pittsburgh, and I had a meeting with Alyosha, who was my other postdoc advisor, and Marshall, and like, what is the difference between CMU and Stanford and MIT? The first thing I was told was, here we do not believe in just papers, we want to make things work. And that's the kind of DNA which Pittsburgh ingrains in their talent and want to make things work. And I think that kind of leads us to think in a very different manner. And I think those are the things why I think if we keep ingraining these kind of DNA into our young talent, I think it will basically makes us do the big things. I think Deepak can take the
Now
second.
for the issues.
I mean, before I take the issues, I also mentioned about Marshall that when I was visiting CMU to decide for the school, Marshall gave a personal tour to me and my wife around Pittsburgh, showing every bridge, every area, and they became the shots in these videos. So, I think what can we do better is I mean, while we should celebrate, okay, Pittsburgh is great, and I think it has been great for us. One of the interesting things we have to understand in the global, like in US, if you think of startups and the new companies, most of them happen in Silicon Valley, right? So they are clearly ahead of Pittsburgh in some way. They have to offer some things. Now, there is interest from every city around the US to kind of bring talent to their cities, right? So for instance, Texas, there are many companies moving to Texas for whatever reason, right? But Pittsburgh is unique in that sense that we didn't have to actually create artificial things to get talent here. We actually grow talent here. Because of CMU and other like UPenn and other like medical, all of that leads to an organic growth of talent in Pittsburgh. So which means that we don't have the bootstrap problem. But then we have to get that talent and have them build here. Now, we are identifying people who built in Pittsburgh, but Abhinav and I know so many CMU graduates. Actually, you hear of all these companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, and all this. And Mistral, all these LLM companies, and if you go and find, okay, who are the chief engineer, or the CTO, and the person who built this thing model, and you trace their lineage, all from CMU. Like, now, when we got to understand and know the VC world, like they are really after us to get contact to these people early at CMU. So while we are identifying 2-3 companies here that built in Pittsburgh, we have lost almost like 20, 30, 50 companies from people, and they're all big, major unicorn who built somewhere else, right? So which means that Pittsburgh has an organic growth, and we are capturing 1% of it. So which means that we have to be very proactive. First, to realize that there is growth here, because the names that you're hearing from Silicon Valley and other places, actually they are built by most, like significant percentage are CMU grads building those companies, and the talent behind them who are building these models that you use on your phone. So how can we have them here? Like we have to have some extra incentives and things. We should think at a city level, at state level, to give incentives such that they have a huge benefit to open the company here, then go and start somewhere else or join another big company. We can talk more about those incentives could be like, but this is not the place, but there could be initiatives to really encourage that explicitly, then hoping that they open here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Abhinav. We're a couple of minutes over, so I don't want to be in trouble with the organizers, so we should stop here. Thank you again for an inspiring conversation.
Thank you.
you.